And I'm here with my lovely and beautiful wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. How you doing today, babe?
I'm doing so great. How cool we got video pillow talk this time.
Yeah, we decided to go ahead and do the video thing. I hope that that's okay. I hope everybody appreciates that. And God bless you all for joining us. I hope that we can have a conversation that benefits everyone and allows us to grow. In case you don't know, Pillow Talk is a place where I get together with my therapist wife, and I'm a finance professor. And we talk about issues in the black community, and we try to talk about them in a way that is going to help us grow, help us get smarter, be a little bit blacker, and also have some fun. And as you come in, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe, everything else. And also, Dr. Alicia is a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work, and her website is coachingwithdralicia.com. So let's jump to the topic today. What's up, Dennis Spraggins? How are you? Shout out the city you're from. And if I see you, Eric Harris, I see you in here, I will shout your city back if I see your city. All right, so we're here to talk about this incident with this mother in Chicago who got into a situation with a man who was doing way too much. He decided that punching a woman was okay, and which we don't think is okay on this platform at all. I'm not a fan at all of the idea of a man hitting a woman. And lo and behold, she had a son, and her sons don't tend to enjoy watching their mothers get beat in public, and now he is no longer with us. So as my friend Willie D, he put up a meme about it. I don't know if he can meme someone's death. I think that's quite a bit, but he put it up, and it said, it had a picture of the man, and it said, when you go out to get a burger and you come home with a pair of wings. So literally, I guess he's referencing the fact that he's now in heaven. He's no longer with us. And it all started because he decided to punch a black woman in public. So give me a yes if you have seen this story. Give me a yes if you've been following this and you have an opinion. Let me know. I see Philadelphia. We have Philadelphia in the room. New Jersey for Tisha Davis. Also a Syracuse University alum. Very nice. First time listening to the program. Welcome, Tisha. We hope that you will subscribe and keep coming back. Robert Christopher from Detroit in Chicago. Treese says, and let's start with Treese. Treese says he didn't have to. He wanted to, and he was probably scared. Okay, so you're talking about the son. Okay, so let's start with Treese. So Treese says that the son who came in with the gun, so this is what happened, in case you don't know, the son comes in with the gun, and he decides to shoot this man, and there's mixed, conflicting statements. There is an allegation that the mother encouraged him to shoot this guy. There was also the allegation, which was reported in the media, that the son that the mother told the son, like, take him out, don't just shoot him, kill him. Now, is that true or not? I don't know. That's why I use the word allegedly. But I'd be curious, Dr. Alicia, ma'am, black woman / therapist. What are your thoughts about all this?
God, I mean, for me, it's been like an emotional roller coaster for me, because when I originally heard the story, the information that I heard was that she got into an altercation with a man. The mom got into an altercation with Jeremy at the hot dog stand, and texted her son to tell her son to come in and shoot this man. And immediately, I mean, my first reaction to that was like, oh my gosh, these parents that tell their children if something happens, come in guns blazing. Like, if somebody bothers you or somebody does something that you don't like, the first thing you do is just like retaliate in terms of physical violence. And I just remember thinking, like, we need to stop this, y'all, in our community. Like, we got to stop telling our kids to solve problems by fighting. Like, it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to have conflict with other people, but to solve it by physical violence. Like, first I was thinking, okay, she got into an argument with some guy in a restaurant, and the response to an argument is to tell your child who's 14 years old, a minor, to pull out a gun and shoot this person dead. It was, it's not like Jeremy had a gun, and then she said, oh, this man has a gun, so I'm going to have my son come in with a gun who's 14 years old. He's a child, to come in and shoot. So that was my initial reaction, right? Until I saw the video. Did you see the video, boys?
Yeah.
Of Jeremy punching her in the face?
Oh my
I
gosh.
saw the video, and then my whole position changed. I was like, good grief. They had a physical, like, it looked like they were yelling at each other. And then all of a sudden he just like balls his fist up and he just punches her. Looked like he was gonna really injure her. Like his intention was to like do some big time damage. And I was like, oh, so now I get it. It wasn't like they just got into an argument and she got upset and had her son come and kill this man. And he was just like, it looked like he could have knocked her out. I mean, he was stole on her like like a grown man would be fighting against another grown person, another grown man. So that was those are my initial thoughts. I got more thoughts, but did you want to jump in there?
Well, let me say this. Look, from the bigger picture standpoint,
yeah,
I think that there needs to be a conversation amongst those who care about the black community to talk about the emergence of what has been referred to as the husband's son. Because this also happened, if you remember, NBA star Ja Morant. Ja Morant got into a similar kind of incident where his mother was in an argument with a guy at Foot Locker and called her son, and her son shows up with his crew ready to whoop this dude, waiting to see when he gets off work and everything else. So, like, and that, obviously there's a natural instinct where the son wants to protect his mother. I know that if I was put in that situation, I'd be protecting my mother too. But I think the question that a lot of people were asking is, how do we even end up in a world where a 14-year-old has to decide to pull out a gun and shoot somebody in order to protect his mother? Where is his father? Where is her husband? Where are the men in the community? What was going on with all those people who were sitting inside this hamburger
and didn't
joint?
break it up.
Yeah, we're just sitting there watching. I mean, just sitting there watching. But a lot of that partly is driven by fear. I think that there's just like this fear, like, okay, if I get involved, then bad things are going to happen to me. Maybe this guy's in a gang, and I understand that, right? But it's just real. It's a real reflection of the deformity, the cultural deformity, if you want to use that term, the cultural deformity that has occurred in the black community, where you have just these awkward scenarios popping off where kids got to, pull out the strap when you just started ninth grade,
Yeah, well, first of all, I also was thinking when I was listening before Jeremy punched the mom, I remember just thinking, why is she yelling at him in public? That was another thing. I'm just like, you're just going to get a hot dog, apparently. So I don't know, like, what led up to it.
Maybe those were really good hot dogs.
Man,
that's a corny joke.
People need their hot dogs, but I was just thinking, like, because I have been in situations in public where someone was rude to me, and usually I don't care because I don't know you. So I just let it go. Sometimes I just let it go because I'm there for my hot dog. I grab my hot dog and I go. So I don't know, like, she was really, from what I saw from the video, I mean, she was really yelling at him at the top of her lungs. Like, she was really kind of arguing, and she just reminded me of, like, not all of us, but sometimes we as black women, we can get all mad and just start, just yelling and being belligerent. We can be very cool with our words. And I remember just thinking, I would not, if I was putting myself in her position, like, first of all, I wouldn't be arguing with anybody in public, especially somebody I don't know on the south side of Chicago. I just would not even strike up an argument with someone. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is, I would never in a million years ask any of my children, especially my 14-year-old son, to come and shoot somebody. Like, I wouldn't even put that in his head to say, I'm in danger. Don't call the police. Don't call Uncle so-and-so. Don't call, cousin so-and-so to come. You come with your gun and you shoot this man to death. Like, there's never in a million years I would ever ask my child, even if I had a son that said, you can't mess with my mama like that, I would say, wait, you sit down, because I wouldn't want to put my son in harm's way. What if this guy Jeremy had a gun and said, oh, you're gonna shoot me? I'm gonna turn around and shoot you. What if it was just a big shootout in this place? Like, I wouldn't, for the love of my children, ever encourage my children, number one, to be violent, but number two, to protect me in that way. Like, I wouldn't even see a minor Because can you imagine, he just killed somebody, he's 14. The psychological damage that it has on him. I mean, he just took a life. Like, that's something to me that's very serious, and I would never ask a child, even though 14-year-olds can be really big, mentally and psychologically, they're children still. You know, and he's probably got to live with this for the rest of his life. I mean, I don't know, like, yeah, in some ways he's a hero because he protected his mother, but also in some ways, what are the ways in which he is psychologically damaged by having to have a life, a sentient soul taken from somebody just to be in that position? I'm humanizing this a little bit because when I saw the picture of this person and his own children, he's got a set of twins. Like, you know, that humanized the whole experience, and I just think that there's better ways to deal with conflict than shooting and killing somebody and thinking that that's what you have to do. Like, look at those little girls.
Well, by the way, everybody, my name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. You're watching Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins, and my wife is Dr. Alicia. And Dr. Alicia is a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work, also a certified trauma specialist, which I'm actually going to ask you about in a second. But I also want to tell everybody that Dr. Alicia is doing a virtual wellness retreat.
Yes.
And so if you'd like to learn more about this retreat and you have some healing to do, then go to draliciawellness.com. That's draliciawellness.com.
Look at that.
And me personally, I have a book called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. If you go to boycewatkins.com, you can get a copy of that book. Feel free to go grab a copy. It's also an Amazon bestseller. Now, with that being said, here's what I thought about as it pertains to this situation with this little boy. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And one dynamic that wasn't mentioned very much, you mentioned the idea, like, what if this guy had a gun and responded, or his friends had a gun, or his girlfriend had a gun? She'd
be dead. The girlfriend be like a bloodbath.
So hold on, let me make this point. So, you know, one of the other things that you got to understand, though, is that in a lot of killings, there's also a delayed reaction. You know, what people forget, and when we get into talking, this is why there's such a danger in the hip hop music that glorifies black people killing other black people, is people don't understand. If you're talking about killing somebody, right, you get into an argument with a guy, you say, hey, I'm gonna pull out a gun and I'm gonna end your life right now. You got to understand that that person is tied into a family. They're tied into a community. They have people that love them who will spend the rest of their lives never forgetting what you did to them. I have my best friend Greg Wilkins got murdered in 1995, 96. And 20-something years later, his brother is still thinking about that every single day. And my point is to say that, you know, there's a ripple effect when you talk about violence. So it's not just what might happen that day or in that store. Once you put your son in a situation, pay attention now, give me a guess if you're following what I'm saying. Once you put your son in a situation where he has killed another man, well, guess what? He will never, ever, 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 ever for his entire life be able to walk down the street without wondering if somebody's going to run up on him and get revenge.
Retaliate.
Right, and get retaliation. And not just him, anybody in that family. The mother, the cousins, you know, and that's the pain, that's the tragedy of the violence virus, is that it just doesn't go away. Like when you go places where you know there's people killing each other, where you talk about Crips and Bloods, Hatfields and McCoys, or any other scenario where there's been this constant killing, it's hard to stop because people are like, oh no, we're not going to stop now because you traumatized me. And I'm using that word trauma specifically because I know you're a certified trauma expert. So because you traumatized me, oh, it ain't over yet. It ain't over now. And like, no, I'm not declaring no peace, because I don't have peace now because you took somebody I love, and you might have done it 20 years ago, but I'm still thinking about it every day. Last example I'll give, and then I'd like to get your take on just the trauma aspect of it all. Larry Miller, a great friend of ours, you know, the former CEO of the Air Jordan brand, a really smart guy. He wrote a great book about incarceration, and he talked about what got him sent to prison the first time. And he talked about the fact that he killed somebody when he was 16 years old. Larry is 71, 72 years old. So this happened over 55 years ago. Do you know that when Larry was telling that story over 50 years later, that guy's family still came out to confront him about that? 50 years later, half century later. So this doesn't go away. Her son, to some extent, has almost been sort of hit. This is going to be a shadow over his existence until the day he dies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like being a combat veteran. You know, somebody who's killed somebody back in Vietnam, and they're 80 years old, and they still experiencing it. They still relive it in their sleep and re-experience it and wake up in the middle of the night every time it's 4th of July is coming up. Every time it's 4th of July and you hear firecrackers. I mean, it's trauma related to combat veterans right here in our neighborhoods. And so yeah, that's what happens when you live in pain from decisions that you make.
Well, you know, gun violence causes trauma. One thing that, and I don't know if y'all know this, but Alicia is a certified trauma expert. And one of the things I learned when you were getting your trauma certification is how trauma affects us so heavily and so deeply. And like, so now whenever I watch, whenever I see something like the BET Awards and you see people acting crazy and ridiculous and ghetto, I think about trauma. Most like we bond around trauma. Black people love to brag about how much trauma they've had. Like, in fact, we almost believe. Give me a yes if you've ever seen this. But you know, we almost feel like if you're black and you haven't had trauma, like your upbringing wasn't absolutely horrible, that you ain't really black. You know, you know how Joe Biden said, if you don't vote Democrat, you ain't black. Well, there are people who really believe that if you haven't been traumatized out of your freaking mind and literally doing all kinds of crazy stuff just to cope with all the pain that you experience on a day-to-day basis, well, you ain't really black. You ain't really gone through nothing. I don't like that. I don't like the trauma Olympics. That's what it feels like. The TO, trauma Olympics. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the thing is that if you don't deal with your pain, you're going to suffer. And the issue with life is that pain is inevitable, but suffering isn't. And one of the offshoots of trauma is a dysregulated neurological system. And I think this example is the perfect illustration of Jeremy and this mother being dysregulated. They were yelling at each other. They were raising their hands. If you see the video, Jeremy's balling his fist up. Like, that picture of him with his daughters, that's the real Jeremy. You know, that's the loving father who cares for his children, who has probably, you know, a mom, a dad, brothers, sisters. He's a cousin to somebody, an uncle to somebody. That's the real Jeremy. That picture of him, look how beautiful. I mean, that picture is beautiful. But when you've dealt with trauma and you haven't dealt with it effectively, your system becomes dysregulated very easy. So here's this lady yelling at him and he's like, say one more thing and I'm going to punch you. You know, that's how you know, say one more thing and I'm going to punch you. And she said one more thing and he punched her. You know, and then that tells you you're dysregulated. So that's the biggest thing. And that is something, the very first thing we're going to talk about in my retreat is how to regulate your body so that you don't end up in situations like this.
Yeah, and by the way, some of you are asking about Alicia's retreat. It's going to be virtual, so you can do it from the comfort of your own home. If you have some trauma you want to heal from, I encourage you to consider it. Just take a look. You can go to draliciawellness.com. I'll put it in the chat also so everybody can kind of see it. It's draliciawellness.com. And Quincy, if you can put it on the screen, because I really think that as black people, we absolutely must, you know, sort of deal with that, because you're right. You know, one of the things I also learned, again, because I listen to you. She thinks she thinks I don't listen, but I do. I listen a lot. And you talk a lot about that, you know, about what trauma does to your body, what trauma does to your decision making, how it can cause you to just be triggered by things that are not necessarily worth being triggered over, right? Like,
and you know, once you get triggered, you're going to say and you're going to do things that you're going to later regret, and it could be deadly.
Yeah.
And you're not setting a good example. Nowhere along this entire story with Jeremy and this mom and son, nowhere is there a lesson on how to deal with conflict. Nowhere is there a lesson on taking deep breaths and calming down and taking a moment to stop and think about things. You know, nowhere is there Nowhere is there humanity or love for, I feel horrible because I'm sitting here looking at these the submarine memes and I'm laughing at them because they're really funny. And it's called a submersible. We all know that story, but I have to stop and think and be like, there are 5 families. There are 5 people in that submarine that their life was wiped out so fast they didn't even know what hit them. I mean, that's got to be absolutely devastating can you imagine the wife and the mom? You have all the money in the world and here you are missing somebody. So people can be taken from your life instantly. And so that's something that we just need to think about, the humanity of it.
Well, I went to my Instagram. My Instagram is the real Boyce Watkins, and and I don't know if Quincy could pull the Instagram up on the screen by chance, but it's the real Boyce Watkins, and I put up a story about the prosecutors dropping the charges against the mom, and effectively the charges were dropped. And and I wanted to see what people in the chat had to say. Right, I always want to hear what intelligent Black people have to say because I think that we should be leading the world, people like us. And one of the things I found was that there's just a lot of division. The general themes I saw, and I'll read some of your comments in a sec. The general theme that I saw is that there are a lot of people who don't have a lot of sympathy for this guy who got killed. There are a lot of people are like, look, you're punching this lady in the head. This is crazy. This is ridiculous. But then I would hear people talk about the fact that, think about this, because you don't have any real men around, you have to rely on a 14-year-old boy to do a man's job. I'm like, so where's the daddy? Where's the husband? Where are the men in the community? Where are the men that are going to say, no, bro, look, son, you step back. We're going to handle this. That's not there. And this is a chronic issue in the community. And then and then there was debate about what happened after, right? There's some people who say, well, the mother was egging him on. The mother told him to do this, told him to do that. But then there are people saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's all fake news. That's fake news, right? And then I heard another conspiracy theory that the mother did it deliberately. She egged him on because she really wanted to kill him anyway, so she got him in. And that's what I'm noticing is that people have their preconceived beliefs, and they'll see the same thing everybody else will see, and they'll kind of come away with their own interpretation based on their pre-existing value system. So, for example, I'll read a couple comments, and then I'd like to get your thoughts on these. So, I'm Black and I say so. This sister comments a lot. She says, I'm glad the charges were dropped. He beat that woman like she was a grown man. Coco Cinderella says, evidence came out that the mother did not serve those kinds of messages to her son. So she's saying that's what the evidence came out. I didn't see any evidence of that.
No, I didn't either.
All right, I didn't see that. But so that, to me, makes me wonder, is that what you believe? That's the quote-unquote emerging evidence that was cited by prosecutors that the mother really didn't egg her son on and that she was really in complete self-defense. I don't know if that's a possibility. Chef Sean says she need to stay off camera and move. I don't get that. Let's see here. Chef
Maybe
Sean
because of retaliation.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, Chef Sean says you're supposed to neutralize. Dude could have been going to get a gun out of the car. Cops shot you. They're not allowing you to go to your car. Okay. Let's see here. A lot of people are happy that the charges were dropped. Give me a yes if you're happy that the charges are dropped. And then I'm reading one last comment, and then I want your take on it, babe. Let's see. Fear None, a big cat, says, great. I'm happy for the mother and son. She didn't keep telling him to shoot. Again, I haven't seen any evidence of that, so I don't know if that's his belief or what. He says, I'm glad they are free, and F the dude, right? He used to put his hands on his own mom, put hands on his girlfriend plenty of times also, and damn near killed her. Okay. So good he's gone. So he's glad that the guy, he feels like the guy got what he had coming. What are your thoughts on just all of this?
Yeah, well, you said they needed to have a real man, a man's job. You talked about a man's job.
Yes.
A man's job. A man's job is not to shoot people.
Okay.
That's not a man to me.
Sometimes it could be.
No, that's not a man.
If somebody gotta get shot, the man should do it. Don't you agree? I mean, if someone must be shot, I mean, put it this way: if someone is in our house that needs to be shot, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to allow you to do it. I'm not going to allow the girls to do it. I'm not going to allow Quincy to put himself in that situation. I'm going to say, I'm 52. I've lived a good life. Let me go in here and handle this.
Why?
Because
Why
that's
do you
my
have
job.
to shoot? That's the thing. It's not. I think we need to step away from a man's job is to come in and kill people and fight with people.
It's not to kill people. It's to defend and protect.
No, a man's job, I mean, that's fine. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that a man's job is to neutralize it.
Okay.
You know, a real man comes in and says, hey, breaks it up. A real man breaks it up. A real man sees that there are two people having an argument and a fight, and it could easily escalate, and they're dysregulated individuals, and they step in and they break it up. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what a man does. A man, because it's like two children fighting. When you get into that dysregulated stage, you resort back to childlike ways. You know, where you just fight. Like, it's almost like a toddler. I remember my kids would just, they would get mad at each other, and first thing they do is launch at each other, and they ready to throw stuff at each other. But I'm an adult. You know, I'm a parent. And as parents, we teach our children better ways of dealing with your anger, okay? Or better ways of dealing with things where it's a teachable moment. You separate everybody from each other. You have a conversation. Okay, everybody, let's just relax. Let's calm down. You know, let's handle this in a way where it's peaceful. That's a real man. That's protecting. To me, that's protection. That's keeping everybody straight, making sure everybody is okay. That's what protection is. Okay. And I do think that if the mother actually said, come on in here and shoot this man dead and shoot his girlfriend dead, if she said that, that's murder. Mm-hmm. That's like first degree murder to sit there and do that. And yeah, I know you're upset because someone punched you. You know, and we could go back and forth about that. But to actually call out and to say, shoot this person dead and shoot their girlfriend dead, I just think that's a little extreme.
Okay. All right. So I hear what you're saying, right? And I think that ideally I would have liked to have seen this get dealt with in a way that didn't lead to any loss of life, right? And I think that would have been possible had there been a man in the vicinity strong enough physically to overtake this guy, tackle him, get him to the ground, right? Because, you know, the gun did not need to be introduced into the situation.
Didn't need to be.
However, the reason the gun needed to be introduced is because there was not a real man in the building strong enough to deal with him. So the 14-year-old boy is saying, somebody's beating the crap out of my mother. What do I do? Well, guess what? I'm 14. You punching my mom in the head. I can't whoop you physically, so pop, pop, pop. You're not going home that day. So that's my logical, way of seeing these things. Now, here's what I think. I think that what you're saying is correct in the sense that the goal in the black community is to minimize the violence. You know, nobody. I mean, none of it should have happened. You know, don't start, none, it won't be none. There should not. It should never have gotten to that point in the first place. Because think about. Well, here's what happened. You had yelling that turned into punching that turned into gunshots. So you got to go back to the beginning and say, what trauma, what triggers caused the yelling in the first place. Because there are a lot of people who could be in that very same situation. And this is really important to understand. This is why everybody in here, if you had as much trauma as I did growing up, you should get some help. Heal yourself, get some therapy. Because there are a lot of people who could have been in that very same situation at the hot dog stand, pissed off because the hot dog didn't get there on time, or somebody cut in line, and all that yelling and that crazy ghetto behavior wouldn't have even happened. There wouldn't be any screaming back and forth. And it wouldn't even got to the point of, say one more thing and I'm going to punch you. Right. So I think that to look at that whole situation, you got to reverse engineer that and say, how do we even get into these awkward situations in the first place? And that's how you solve the problem. You got to go to the root of things. And you also have to go to the root and say, how do we get to a community where young men are raised to even think that it's appropriate to punch a woman in the head because you're mad at her? Like that right there makes me say, violence. Okay, who raised you? What were your primary male influences? Because I could tell a story about that. You want me to tell a story?
Go right ahead, Boyce.
It's a story. It makes me vulnerable. It's a story. So imagine this. It's the 8th grade, and I'm just now becoming a man. I'm still a little boy, but I'm kind of becoming a man. I hit puberty. Well, there was this girl named Big Becky. And Big Becky,
the Big Becky
was
story.
the Big Becky story. So I got to hear your stories about how people should never have to fight, and you got to hear my story about Big Becky again. So Big Becky, literally Big Becky intimidated me because I was maybe 5 feet tall. Becky's like 5'8". I'm weighing about 120. Becky's pulling a good 170. Becky decides she wants to fight me, so she physically grabs me. So I respond, I retaliate, and I'm responding honestly out of fear because Becky was a big old white girl. She was a white girl. And so I just start fighting back without realizing that I was becoming a man. So I was hitting that stage in life where boys become stronger than girls. Before that, y'all know what I'm talking about. Anybody remember that? Remember the time where the girls could beat up the boys, and then you get about 12 and then everything changes and the boys are suddenly gaining muscles and the girls are like crying all the time because they're starting to have their menstrual cycles and stuff. Right? That's just kind of how I remembered it. So I start fighting Big Becky, and eventually I start winning the fight. I put her in the headlock and I'm hitting her in the head, whatever. And then, you know what happened was, after the fight was over, Becky goes over to her corner, I go to mine, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'll whoop that dude's ass, right? That's what I'm thinking in my head, right? And I'll see Becky over there crying. And I was like, you're not supposed to cry. Like, dudes don't cry. Like, what are you doing? You know, and that's when I realized, oh, Becky's a girl, right? And even though she attacked me first, and I thought I was justified, I went home and I shared that story with my father. And you know what my father told me is he said, hitting on women is a very bad habit to get into. He said, you should not hit a woman. And that at 12 was the first time I learned that. And I don't know if this is an embarrassing story or not, but it's me trying to be as honest as possible in terms of referencing how manhood kind of occurs and how you have these experiences that educate and inform you. And from that moment on, I never felt it was appropriate to hit a woman. So I'm wondering if this kid, I bet you this guy who was punching this lady, I wonder if he had a father, if he had one that was around. I don't know what kind of father he was. I wonder if he ever had that kind of conversation with his son. That's my point. I doubt it, because you're on national TV punching a lady in the head because she argued with you over a hot dog. What do you think?
You know, it's thank you for sharing that story, Boyce.
You're welcome.
I'm sure Becky with the good hair.
She didn't have no good hair.
Learned a lesson.
She looked like Shrek to me at the time.
Yeah, you know, isn't it interesting this happened at a hot dog stand? Like, this doesn't happen at vegan restaurants. This doesn't happen. Eat your
That is
vegetables.
so true. We ever eat hot dogs and ham hocks and fried chicken, and you're right. You're right. There was somebody who talked about that. You know, we got a lot of people.
Nobody should be eating hot dogs.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people in our space, like Juiced Up Reese and other people, who can point to the fact that a lot of the crazy behavior you see in the black community can be linked to the food that we eat.
The food, yeah.
Yeah, I used to think that was
for this food.
Oh my gosh.
What hot dog was it? Nate's hot dog?
I have no. I don't think it was Nate's hot dog. I don't know.
It's nothing like a Polar sausage though on a hot Chicago night.
Yeah, I just don't. I just tend to stay away from hot dogs. Period.
Yeah, hot dogs are really bad.
Yeah, but I think that's a valid point, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of and I think that this topic in the story got people's interest because I think for a lot of us, it's so relatable, and it was a reminder of the culture that so many B1 people are trying to walk away from. You know, like how many of you? I'm serious. Give me a yes in the chat if you grew up seeing stuff like this happen and you made a conscious decision to walk away from it because you felt like it was some kind of generational curse and you wanted to move on and do better. You know, because it's not like we haven't seen weird stuff like that happen. And if you live in Chicago, you see something crazy like this happen every week. Just something that's just a symptom of dysfunction, broken families, the economic struggle, the racial oppression. You know, and a lot of it links back to systems. Something very basic like when they sent all the gang leaders away to prison. Now the gangs changed in terms of how they operate. Like women and children are not off limits anymore. You know, they don't. There's no code.
There's
right.
No street
there's no code
no
anymore.
code on the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, so by the way, everybody, you're watching Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia. I should make sure I tell you guys that this is my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. She's a social work professor and also a licensed therapist. Her website is coachingwithdralicia.com. She sees clients on an individual and group basis. So if you have a family that could use some help or a relationship or anything that could use a little therapy, feel free to go to coachingwithdralicia.com. That's coachingwithdralicia.com. Also, she's hosting a wellness retreat that's virtual. So if you'd like to join her wellness retreat, just go to draliciawellness.com. All right, so one more thing I wanted to mention was Nicki Minaj. So after this happened, so after this sister Carlicia Hood, I believe that's her name.
Carlicia, okay.
I believe it's Carlicia Hood.
Okay.
After it was over and the charges were dropped, she files a lawsuit against the city and says, you know, you falsely arrested me and my son. And she's got her attorneys on fleek, and they're ready to go get this money. And then Nicki Minaj comes out and says, I'm going to pay for the son, the 14-year-old, to go to college. And here's what she says. It's on the screen. If you're on Spotify, you won't be able to see this, but I'll read it to you. It says, that 14-year-old boy that backed that hammer out when that grown-ass man was punching his mother in the face as if she were a man is a true hero. If he wants to go to college, I'd love to help. It's what any son should have done for their mother. She raised a dope kid and should be so proud. Also, God knew before she knew that she'd attacked that day and made sure they had protection on deck. God is good.
God is good. He had a gun. That's protection.
Which he pulled that hammer out.
He pulled the hammer out. Must be the gun, right?
Yeah, that's the hammer.
Because I think gun is probably like
gun.
a trigger word on Twitter.
Probably.
That'll probably get the.
But she's a rapper. She has creative ways to say gun.
So
Rappers
creative.
rappers know a million ways to say.
Okay.
To talk about their vagina. They know a million ways to talk about killing other black people, and they know a million ways to talk about wasting money, stuff like that. So,
yeah, but Nicki Minaj, I think, is one of the good ones.
Oh, Nicki's very.
She's
talented.
one of the good ones. I do. Now I see this. Like I'm reading this tweet here, and I can see where she's coming from. She's seeing it where this child came and was like, and was a hero in the story and protected his mother and did what his mother asked him to do.
Mm-hmm. You know what?
I can see that. I could definitely see where she's coming from with that. You know, I personally would never want my child to do that for me. I would never want that to done. But if my child rescued me from somebody who could possibly punch me, because you can punch somebody to death, and have like traumatic brain injuries from being punched. Yeah, I mean, I can see how this little boy was a hero in the story.
Well, I want to ask the mothers out here. You know, if you were getting punched by a grown man, and your 14-year-old son
Came and protected you.
was nearby with a gun, would you want your son to get involved and shoot and perhaps kill that person? Like,
Probably
how
not.
would you? You know, and I ask mothers that question because that's a conflict, right? On one hand, on one hand, you know, you want that protection, but on the other hand, I'm going to just go ahead and say that I think that that's a job for a grown man to protect the family. I don't think that. I think it's very unfortunate that we have scenarios where we have to have husbands, sons out here that are doing the job that I believe the father should do. I don't think, and I get it. I think what Nicki said is fine. I think Nicki is kind of right in the sense that, you know, it's like, yeah, you protected your mom. That's great. But, you know, why are we in that situation? Why are we at, you know?
Well, it's not out of the question that, suppose she is married to the father. We don't know this. But suppose she was. Like, it's not out of the question that I'd go and pick up a hot dog and take my son with me.
Right.
Take my son along. Like, I don't necessarily have to. Like, when I go.
That's true.
When I go and get hot dogs, or if I run to Portillo's, you don't come with me.
That's so true.
I come in there and it's just me and Quincy. We're in Portillo's, but Quincy's about twice as big as both of us. So, you know. And I mean, from the eyes of a 14-year-old. And you see your mom possibly getting injured like that, I could see in the eyes of a 14-year-old from his perspective, it's like, I needed to protect my mom. Like, I needed to make sure she was okay.
And you know what's interesting?
I mean, I think what if he came into that hot dog stop and just shot in the air? Like, what if he came in there and just shot in the air and said, "Hey, cut it out or I'll shoot you"?
Yeah.
And the man was like, fine. And then, or he called 911. No one called the police until afterwards.
That's because everybody was too busy pulling out their damn cell phones.
Too busy pulling out their cell
trying
phones.
to go viral on Instagram.
So,
it's like, call the police.
You know what? I wonder if the police department, I bet Chicago Police Department got enough stuff on their hands. They'd be like, wait, tell the story again. They were like, man, drop the charges. We got bigger fish to fry up in here. Then to be prosecuting a mother and son who was like defending themselves from this violent, out of control person. You know, the police department was like, dude, we got real murders here. We real first degree murders. Just let this go and let's just go on with our lives. I bet the police department's getting such a, you know, bad rap in a lot of ways. They can't win.
well, you know, let's say this too. Like, we cannot make the assumption that Carlisha Hood is a single mom.
Yeah, we don't
maybe
know.
she's not. You're right. So your point is well taken that maybe, she just happened to not have her husband around that day. I can say this, though. I think that we can't make the assumption that everybody would have handled this situation in the same way, right? And that there's not room to kind of say, does it always have to end with somebody dying? Does it always have to end with a 14-year-old possibly getting life in prison or something? Does it have to end with everybody being traumatized? But also, part of me as a black man is concerned and ashamed that you have this scenario where I think black men have to really sort of consider the fact that, your women are not protected, and the world knows your women are not protected, and they're not protected because, we're not necessarily stepping up the way that we should. But then at the same time, though, we've convinced a lot of women that they don't need a man's protection. And when you say, you don't need a man, then a lot of men are just going to believe you. They're going to say, okay, well, you got it. You got this. Okay, you don't need me. All right, well, I'm out.
Well, what would make a woman say, I don't need a man? I mean, in a lot of ways, that's a reaction to men not being there for them when they wanted them there.
Yeah.
It's just like, God, this man let me down. He didn't come through for me like I wanted him to. And it's not happening just once. It's happening on a consistent basis. So, yeah, it makes sense that a woman's just going to say, you know what, then forget it. I don't need him. It's not, deep down inside, you do.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm saying that, but I know I'm saying that women who do say that, I see it, of course, coming from a place of pain.
It is.
That's what you say when you've been in pain because someone you thought you rest for sure. You trusted somebody and you shouldn't have trusted them. Mm-hmm. Nothing hurts more than to trust somebody and then they just betray your trust and you're just like, ow. I don't need no man. It's sad.
Well, babe, I need you. I need you because you made those tacos today, and I can't make tacos by myself.
You can make tacos, Boyce.
I cannot make tacos by myself. I could try to
You're
figure
not
it out,
dependent on
but
me
it would
for
be
tacos.
completely unnatural for me to make tacos for the children.
No.
The children would not survive with my cooking. So
yeah, I'm gonna say one thing, Boyce. I think you need to let go. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if now's the time to dive into that, but I don't know who told you.
I'm in trouble now.
Who gave you a message that men can't cook?
I didn't say no. I did not say men can't cook. I said I can't cook.
Yes, you can.
I don't want to cook.
You don't remember? Okay,
I'm sure you. I'm sure you could fix the roof, but do you want to climb on the roof? No.
Okay.
No, you don't.
I'll tell you one thing. I know you don't want to climb on the roof.
Well, that's why I make a bunch of money so I can pay somebody to do it.
Here's the thing, though, Boyce. Don't you remember cooking me breakfast in the morning?
I did do that.
You used to cook me
breakfast?
About
3 years ago, I made you some French toast. And
it
was damn good.
Oh, no.
It was damn good.
You cooked me French toast several times.
Yes.
You've made bacon and eggs.
I have.
You've made a full course breakfast. Am I calling you out now?
I can throw down with some bacon, eggs, and French toast. Don't ask me for nothing else.
But the thing
don't ask me for no fish sticks. Don't ask me for no steak dinner. Anyway, let's circle back.
I want to challenge.
Okay.
I don't know if now's the time.
No, it's not.
For me to challenge.
It's not the time.
Your definition of what manhood is.
I don't need my definition of manhood challenged.
I'm challenging it because you are a great nurturer. Mm-hmm. You're really good at cooking when you cook.
Right.
And when you clean up behind yourself, that's really cool. I love that. I love when you clean up behind yourself. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So you do a lot of things. You're very creative, and in order to be creative, you have to step into.
Well, Surgeon General is saying
your feminine.
Surgeon General is saying that you're showing me who runs the house.
Listen, Surgeon General. People like Surgeon General have this sort of mindset where relationships are all about power and control. So he's looking at it. He's looking at our discussion through the eyes of power and control, and he's saying, "Who's in control there?" And that's his lens. But Surgeon General can have his lens.
Well, what helps me is I don't need to control other people. I don't need to control women. I don't need to control anybody. I just want to control me. So where I stand is I get only time I get my back straightens out is when I feel like someone is telling me what to do. But I think that men who feel like they're going to just tell women what to do, I don't think that's necessary. I think that you can move in your masculine energy and do what you got to do, and it doesn't have to be oppressive to other people.
No, what I was going to say. I hear that, but what I was going to say is that I find you to be very creative. You wrote this book. You create all these courses. You create these flashcards. You create, your ideas are amazing. And in order to do that, you have to step into your femininity a little bit.
Well, I think we can learn from women. Absolutely.
You're in touch with
I would say
feelings.
every smart man out here should listen to it. Now, let's not talk about me though. Let's talk about the topic.
But
let's get back to the topic.
I want to use that as an illustration though, for everybody to think that they have to adhere to these preconstructed areas of which, men have to only do this, never cook, always do this, just pay the bills, and that's it.
Right.
And I think we need to look at that again.
Well, I think that people should do what they want to do. That's where I stand. Like, do what you want. If if as a man you have a definition of what men do, then that's your right. As a woman, same thing.
The question,
I don't think there's limitations on what you can do. Like, sure, if I wanted to change diapers, I know I could do that. But I don't like diapers; they stink. So I would prefer somebody else do it, right? So I think that people have a right to decide which direction they want to go, and I don't think anybody should be telling people, "Well, you're a man. This is what you should be doing."
Exactly.
This is what you should be doing.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I was saying.
Right. Make your own rules. That's what I tell everybody. Make your own damn rules and make sure you're happy with it, and be careful. Don't let anybody impede on that right that you have fundamentally to be who you want. The same way women have a right to be themselves, I think men do too. So anyway, let's get back to let's jump back to the topic.
There's one thing I want to
go ahead. One more point. Then we're gonna get back to the topic. I don't want to talk about me.
You do not like me talking about this.
I do not like talking about me.
And,
go ahead.
But I want to talk about it because I think it's a wonderful illustration, and I think the key, and I'm not even just talking about us, but I think the key is it working for your relationship? Because I look at, and the reason why I'm on this tip is because I work with couples all the time, right? And you have, the wife is working, the husband is working. Both people are working. So when you come home from working all day long, you have to share the responsibilities in the house, right? You can't just have one person doing everything. And it's usually the mother or the wife that's doing everything once they come home. So if you come home from work, you have to share in that load too. And that's what I was saying, that I think that as a lot of statistics are showing, is that black men are stepping up and they're taking on cooking, they're taking on cleaning, they're sharing the household load. And guess what? Those relationships are healthy. That's all I want to say.
Right. Well, okay, that's a good point. But I also think I would say to all the men, man to man, do you. That's it. Do you. Don't let women tell you what you're supposed to do as a man. Don't let other men. Because you got other men, you got stupid men that'll tell men stupid things about manhood. So don't let anybody tell you what it means to be a man. You figure out what works for you and stick with that. That's my belief. Now, the last thing we'll cut off. And by the way, you're watching Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia, where sometimes we dive off into other topics other than the topic at hand.
Well, I thought that was important to
I think it was very important.
Speak about.
It was very important, babe. But anyway, Dr. Alicia Watkins is a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work. So if you want to take a look at what she does, just go to coachingwithdralicia.com. That's coachingwithdralicia.com. All right, I'm going to let you get the last word. Okay, so what can we take away? When we were talking about this scenario in Chicago of this man, punching this lady in the face and her son pulling out the gun and shooting him. I mean, what is there anything we can learn from this, or is it just a matter of having separate opinions? Because on my Instagram, which is the real Boyce Watkins, I noticed that the community is just divided, and I think that they're divided because there's so many trigger issues that people saw when this incident took place. What would be some takeaways that those who want to break away from generational curses can take from this situation that can make us all better people at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think one perspective either way is better than the other. It makes sense to me. I mean, can both sides of the issue, can they both be right? Does it have to be one or the other? I think the perspective just makes sense to me. Yeah, it makes sense that someone's beating your mom up and you want to come and protect your mother. Yeah, it makes sense that here's this lady yelling at you, screaming at you like you a little boy in a hot dog stand, and you just lose your shit and like say one more thing and I'm gonna punch you in the face and you just lose it. Like that kind of makes sense, although it's not the right thing to do. It's definitely not the right thing to shoot somebody dead. You know, it's all around. You have just a lot of pain and a lot of hurt all around. It's unfortunate that adults can't talk to each other and interact with each other in a way that's peaceful. These are black people. These are black people just going to pick up a hot dog on a hot summer day, and then they get into an altercation. Like, just get your hot dog and go, live your life. You have to get sucked into an argument. And I think that the biggest takeaway is learn how to regulate your nervous system. How do you react when you're triggered? What are your triggers? Figure out what they are and have a plan to work on. Do some meditation, do some running, do some long distance running along the lake. Don't pass by the hot dog stand and go to the vegan stand. I mean, there's so many lessons to be learned here because a soul was taken away from us. And souls were affected. Everybody related to this story, everybody in that store that witnessed this and saw this happen, they are all going to be affected for the rest of their life by this traumatic event.
Well, I know one thing. I remember the last time I did have a conversation with Russell Simmons, he was talking about how he was coming to Chicago to work with some of the kids on some of the stuff he's doing, you know, in terms of yoga and meditation to help with conflict resolution. And I think that you're right about that. I would encourage anybody listening in terms of practical information you can apply is just know that there are therapeutic techniques to help you calm down so that you don't ruin a good relationship because you're mad, or you don't do something that's going to get you sent to jail. And you have to really ignore, you know, some of the influences of society that tell you like, oh, don't let them punk you out. You need to teach them a lesson and do this and do that. And next thing you know, because you hear people say that, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to jail today. I'm going to go to jail. You know, white person calls you the N-word. Oh, I'm going to jail today. Right? No. Well, why would you want to go to jail today? Because you're going to suffer for the rest of your life now. You know, so, don't listen to other people. Find a process, and calm your ass down. Just like when you and I were talking about when we went to Taylor's dance competition, that white lady was ordering me around.
Let me tell you, we got yelled at by so many white people at this dance competition.
I was triggered. That lady told me what she was like. Put your camera down. You didn't. I was like, no, you didn't try to tell me what.
Here's the thing.
Oh my God.
The thing is that had that lady just yelled at us the entire night, it may have been easier to bear. But like as soon as we stepped our foot at that dance competition, you made a mistake and turned into the golf cart lane, and that man yelled at us. Then we were looking
that didn't bother me because
it didn't bother you because it was the first thing that happened.
Well, he didn't yell at me. He just kind of gave me a look, like what are you doing? And I can ignore. I'm talking about when the lady. I'm talking about when the.
No, but wait. Let me go through the whole day though.
You got yelled at several times. I got yelled at once.
Okay,
go ahead.
Can I please go through the whole day? So
not the whole day, baby. We ain't got that much time. Go ahead.
Yes, people want to hear the whole day. You want to hear my whole day. So we got yelled at then, and then we're looking for parking, and we think this car is coming out, but come to find out the car wasn't coming out. And so the car behind us got impatient and drove around, and then you drive off, we almost got into a car accident, a little fender bender there. And then the person got yelled at us. I feel like we got yelled at twice before we even walked into the place. Then we get in there and it's super duper crowded, and we find our people. And then as we're walking, remember we couldn't get in, but anyway, we're walking, some lady yells at us and it's like, that's my daughter dancing, and we were like in front of her.
Remember, she was talking to you. I did not hear that lady.
Well, but I just wanted to say the reason why she was yelling.
Alicia has never been in a fight, y'all. So Alicia ain't no fighter. Nobody. Me, I've been in many fights.
I don't fight nobody.
Me, I grew up old school where you have a bully that's punching you in the face every day, and you realize that you're gonna have to bleed to make a point. That was my experience. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, you told your Becky story. I'm gonna tell this story. So then we're walking to our seats, but she got upset with you. She was mad at you because you walked in front of her.
Oh, so, I didn't care.
Of course you don't care.
Yeah, because
it was like the third time we got yelled at that day.
Right.
So we go and we sit down, and then finally, when Taylor gets up there to dance, and you're not supposed to take pictures, But people take pictures all the time at that thing. But let me tell you, we had not only one lady, we had about 4 or 5 different dance moms that yelled at us.
I got yelled at once. I remember, I did not get yelled at several times. I got yelled at once. And the one time I remember was when the lady told me to put my camera down, and I told her to fuck off. I didn't say it in so many words. I said, I just looked at her like, no, I'm filming Taylor. I want to, hold on. And then the lady kept coming. Then she said it again. She said, put it down. I said, no. And then she said it again. And then here's what happened. This is my lesson, right? Alicia was gonna give you the therapist perspective. I'm gonna give you the real black man perspective here in terms of the traumatized black man point of view.
That's what I was gonna say.
So by the third time, I remember I started to get elevated, and my first reaction was, oh hell no. I went into oh hell no mode, where literally I was about to I do the comment. Yeah, see, that's so funny. So I literally was like,
yeah,
hell no. And you know what happened is I felt myself get elevated, and I said, let me get up and move away from this person so I don't embarrass the family.
Okay.
So because I did not want to ruin, our little girl's big day, right? But that's an example. My point is to say that when you get in those situations where you're triggered, you got to know it and know how to walk away from the thing that's triggering you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I would just want to say that when you're filming during dance competitions, the dancers who are dancing can get disqualified.
And how many dancers got disqualified that day? I want to know.
Okay, but that's the policy. That's the policy, Boyce. And so that's what the lady was trying to explain to you in her. She was definitely being Becky.
If y'all have kids in a dance competition, how many of y'all would still take a picture anyway? Give me a guess if you would, even if you at a graduation and they tell you not to cheer when your baby go across the stage.
I don't cheer.
How many of y'all see? She don't cheer. I will. I'm gonna cheer.
That's why you don't invite ignorant
I'm gonna
people.
cheer. Exactly.
Okay, so what I want to say, if I can finish, that's why you can't take pictures. So that's why I don't take pictures. And what happened was, not only did that lady yell at you, but there were a bunch of ladies yelling at a lot of people. But you were the one that was dysregulated. You became dysregulated. You were mad, and I understand. I would be mad too if I were you.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reason I brought it all up was mainly to just say that, I think that when you get into a situation where somebody's going to bring the worst out in you, you got to get away from that person.
Now, what if that lady kept yelling at you and then you just punched her or something?
And I wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't do that.
I would never do that because I think that would be highly inappropriate. It would, and the thing is that as a man, I know that my behavior would affect other people. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to admit, I wasn't convinced that she was going to get disqualified if I took a quick snapshot. I'm sorry. I wanted to take a couple pictures. I wasn't filming the whole thing. I just filmed like 10 seconds at a time. And nobody got disqualified the entire day. There were hundreds of kids, dozens of dance routines, hundreds of parents taking pictures and video. Not one single child got disqualified. So I think those rules are bullshit. I think they just say that just to scare people. So I
don't know. I've never seen it be enforced. But that is the stated rule.
Yeah, right. And I would just dare to.
I know you don't like rules.
And I would dare to say that if they disqualified the one black girl in the whole damn competition, then guess what? I turned into Al Sharpton that day, and I started screaming about racism. Right, so long story short, she won she became national champion. By the way,
she did become national champion.
Yeah, so we were very proud of her. So anyway, so by the way, everybody, thank you all for joining us on Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and this is the conversation where we try to have intelligent conversations, but then sometimes she says something that don't make no damn sense. And
what do I say that doesn't make sense?
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Don't start with
You're
me,
the
Boyce.
therapist. You're always right. Yes, dear. So
No,
anyway,
I wanna know.
Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about Dr. Alicia and the work that she does, you can go to coachingwithdralicia.com. That's coachingwithdralicia.com. If you'd like to also take a look at her wellness retreat, it's virtual. You can do it from the privacy of your own home. Just go to draliciawellness.com. That's draliciawellness.com. boycewatkins.com. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. My new book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. If you want to see my book and get a copy or anything like that, you can either go to Amazon or boycewatkins.com. I also have financial flashcards for kids and all kinds of stuff. So I hope I'll also see you all at the All Black National Convention, which it's going to be in Atlanta. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com to learn more, and I put stuff also on my website, so it's all on my website. So have a good night, everybody. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye,
We will see you
everybody.
soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.